Remember when dinner was more than just grabbing takeout? Back when ground beef wasn't just a last-minute fix, but the heart of meals that brought families rushing to the table? Those recipes, the ones that could transform a simple pound of beef into something unforgettable, have slowly faded from our kitchens. But today, we're reviving these lost treasures, 25 ground beef recipes that once graced family tables, each with a story worth telling. These aren't just meals, they're pieces of history that deserve another moment in the spotlight. So let's unlock these forgotten kitchen secrets together. Porcupine meatballs. During the Great Depression, resourceful cooks sought ways to stretch limited ingredients. Porcupine meatballs emerged as a creative solution, combining ground beef with uncooked rice, forming meatballs that, when cooked, revealed rice grains protruding like porcupine quills. Simmered in a savory tomato sauce, this dish provided both sustenance and comfort during challenging times. As economic conditions improved and culinary trends evolved, porcupine meatballs gradually disappeared from dinner tables, leaving behind memories of resilience and ingenuity. Depression-era meatloaf Wellington. Next up, a recipe that proves sometimes the simplest dishes hold the biggest surprises. Depression-era meatloaf Wellington. Who says tough times can't inspire creativity? During the Great Depression, resourceful home cooks found a way to transform the luxurious beef Wellington into something just as remarkable without the pricey ingredients. Instead of expensive cuts of beef, they used well-seasoned ground beef. The real genius? The golden crust wrapped around it. Home cooks discovered that with a simple mix of flour, water, and whatever fat they had on hand, they could create layers nearly as flaky as traditional puff pastry. They'd roll it paper thin, fold it just right, and bake it to golden perfection. The presentation made it feel special too. Each loaf was brought to the table with a hand-scored pattern on top, maybe a wheat sheaf design or simple crosshatches. These weren't just decorations, they were marks of pride, turning an ordinary Sunday dinner into a true occasion. Hobo dinner packets. During the 1930s, when every penny mattered, families found creative ways to stretch simple ingredients into something special. That's when Hobo dinner packets made their mark on American tables. Imagine this. A perfectly seasoned ground beef patty, wrapped in foil alongside carrots, potatoes, and onions. These meals originated along the railroad tracks where workers needed something easy to cook over campfires. But the foil wasn't just for convenience, it was the key to making even the toughest cuts of beef tender and flavorful. As the vegetables cooked, they released their natural juices, infusing the beef with rich, savory flavors. This simple yet brilliant method turned a humble meal into something truly satisfying. And here's a little known secret. Before sealing the packet, they'd add a pat of butter and a sprinkle of dried thyme. As the butter melted, it created a sauce so rich and flavorful, it was pure heaven. Funny enough, what started as a necessity became a favorite at backyard cookouts and camping trips. Simple? Sure. But these packets had something most modern meals don't. That magical moment when you unwrap the foil and a cloud of savory steam rises, letting you know dinner is about to be incredible. Salisbury steak. Named after Dr. James Salisbury, a 19th century physician who advocated for a meat-centric diet, Salisbury steak became a staple in American households. Ground beef was seasoned, shaped into patties, and served with a rich brown gravy. Often accompanied by mashed potatoes and green beans, it was a comforting meal that bridged the gap between humble ingredients and hearty satisfaction. Over time, as convenience foods and changing tastes took precedence, Salisbury steak found itself relegated to TV dinners and faded from its former glory. Swedish potato beef casserole. Speaking of amazing transformations, wait until you hear about another forgotten favorite that turned humble ingredients into something special. Long before fancy casseroles took over American kitchens, Swedish immigrants introduced a dish that became a hidden gem on family tables, the Swedish potato beef casserole. This wasn't just another casserole, it was a masterpiece of layering, turning a modest amount of ground beef into a feast fit for royalty. The magic started with paper-thin potato slices, each one brushed with a velvety white sauce that could make your grandmother weak in the knees. But this wasn't any ordinary cream sauce. It had a hint of nutmeg and white pepper, secrets brought over by the first Swedish settlers in Minnesota. American goulash. Distinct from its Hungarian namesake, American goulash was a one-pot wonder that combined ground beef, elbow macaroni, tomatoes, and a medley of spices. This budget-friendly dish was a favorite among families, offering a simple yet flavorful meal that could feed a crowd. Its ease of preparation and adaptability made it a weeknight staple. However, as global cuisines gained popularity and palates became more adventurous, American goulash slowly retreated into the shadows of culinary history. Stuffed bell peppers. A vibrant and wholesome dish, stuffed bell peppers featured hollowed-out peppers filled with a savory mixture of ground beef, rice, tomatoes, and herbs. Baked until tender, the peppers offered a delightful combination of flavors and textures. This dish was particularly popular in the mid-20th century, gracing family dinner tables and potlucks alike. As culinary trends shifted towards faster and more convenient meals, the labor-intensive stuffed bell peppers began to wane in popularity, becoming a nostalgic relic of the past. Beef stroganoff. Because originating in Russia, beef stroganoff was adapted by American cooks during the mid-20th century, often utilizing ground beef instead of the traditional strips. The dish featured tender beef simmered in a creamy sauce enriched with sour cream and mushrooms, all served over egg noodles. Its rich and comforting profile made it a family favorite. However, as lighter and more health-conscious eating became prevalent, this indulgent dish saw a decline, making way for modern interpretations and alternative cuisines. Beef and biscuit bake. Merging savory and comforting elements, the beef and biscuit bake featured a base of seasoned ground beef and vegetables topped with fluffy biscuit dough. Baked until the biscuits were golden and the filling was bubbling, this dish offered a delightful contrast of textures. It was a popular choice for family meals, combining protein, vegetables, and bread in one satisfying bake. Over time, as culinary preferences evolved and quicker meal solutions emerged, the beef and biscuit bake became a cherished memory of home-style cooking and family togetherness. Beef paprikash. Drawing inspiration from Hungarian cuisine, beef paprikash adapted the traditional chicken version by using ground beef. The dish featured ground beef simmered in a rich sauce of tomatoes, onions, and sweet paprika, often finished with a swirl of sour cream. Served over egg noodles or rice, it provided a comforting and flavorful meal. Its warm, spiced profile made it a favorite during cooler seasons. As global culinary influences expanded and tastes diversified, beef paprikash gradually faded from regular menus, becoming a nostalgic reminder of mid-century American adaptations of international dishes. Beef and potato hash, a versatile and economical dish. Beef and potato hash combined ground beef with diced potatoes, onions, and spices, all sautéed together until crispy and flavorful. Often served for breakfast or brunch, it utilized leftover ingredients and provided a hearty start to the day. Its simplicity and adaptability made it a favorite in many households. As breakfast options diversified and convenience foods became more common, beef and potato hash gradually faded from regular menus, becoming a nostalgic reminder of resourceful cooking. Beef and macaroni skillet. A quick and satisfying meal, the beef and macaroni skillet featured ground beef cooked with elbow macaroni, tomatoes, and a blend of spices, all simmered together in one pan. This dish was both economical and easy to prepare, making it a popular choice for busy families. Its comforting flavors and minimal cleanup added to its appeal. As culinary preferences evolved and more diverse pasta dishes gained popularity, the beef and macaroni skillet became a relic of the past, evoking memories of weeknight dinners and comfort food. Sunday night hash souffle. Fast forward to the post-war years when American kitchens were buzzing with a new kind of creativity. Enter Sunday night hash souffle. The name might sound fancy, but this dish was born from pure practicality. After Sunday's big roast dinner, resourceful cooks transformed leftover beef by grinding it fresh, mixing it with yesterday's potatoes, and working a little kitchen magic. The secret wasn't in the ingredients, it was in the technique. They folded in whipped egg whites just like French chefs, but with a practical American twist. Every family had their own method. Some swore by beating the eggs exactly 100 times, while others had special copper bowls passed down for generations used exclusively for this dish. Beef and cabbage skillet. Embracing simplicity and flavor, the beef and cabbage skillet combined ground beef with shredded cabbage, onions, and seasonings, all sautéed together until tender. This dish was both economical and nutritious, offering a low-carb alternative to heavier meals. Its quick preparation and satisfying taste made it a favorite among home cooks. Over time, as dietary trends shifted and more elaborate meals became the norm, the humble beef and cabbage skillet faded from popularity, leaving behind memories of wholesome, home-cooked simplicity. Ground beef radio dinner. Special occasions brought families together in different ways, and few meals captured that spirit like the ground beef radio dinner. Picture this. It's the 1930s, the radio is playing your favorite evening program, and dinner is sizzling in a single trusty skillet. But this wasn't just any meal. It was timed to be ready precisely when the family's favorite show reached its peak. The magic was in the rhythm. You'd start browning the beef just as Amos and Andy began, toss in the vegetables when Jack Benny cracked his first joke, and by the time the mystery show reached its dramatic climax, dinner was served. Every step wasn't measured in minutes, but by radio segments, a meal woven into the evening's entertainment. Beef and cornbread skillet. A harmonious blend of flavors and textures, the beef and cornbread skillet featured seasoned ground beef cooked with vegetables, topped with a cornbread batter, and baked until golden. This one-pan meal was both convenient and satisfying, offering a balance of savory meat and sweet cornbread. It was a popular choice for family dinners and potlucks, as culinary trends favored more diverse and health-conscious options. Beef and cornmeal tamale pie. Meanwhile, in the Southwest, something special was cooking. Beef and cornmeal tamale pie, a perfect blend of Mexican tradition and Depression-era ingenuity. This wasn't just a casserole, it was borderland magic at its finest. The secret? The cornmeal crust. Unlike today's quick mix versions, home cooks toasted the cornmeal first, stirring it in a dry skillet until it released an aroma so rich neighbors 3 houses away knew something good was cooking. Then came the filling. Ground beef infused with chilies, garlic, and just a pinch of cumin, spices that were slowly making their way into American pantries. But here's the real genius. Cooks stretched their precious beef supply by adding whatever vegetables the garden offered. When times were tough, this dish could feed twice as many mouths as a regular meal, and no one left the table hungry. Beef and barley stew. A staple in many traditional households, beef and barley stew combined ground beef with hearty barley grains, simmered together with an assortment of vegetables like carrots, celery, and onions. This nourishing stew was both filling and economical, making it a popular choice during times when stretching ingredients was essential. The chewy texture of barley paired harmoniously with the savory ground beef, creating a comforting meal, especially favored during the colder months. As modern cooking shifted towards quicker preparations and more exotic grains, this humble stew gradually faded from regular rotation, leaving behind warm memories of family dinners around a bubbling pot. Beef and spinach ring. A mid-20th century culinary creation, the beef and spinach ring was both a visual and gastronomic delight. Ground beef was mixed with cooked spinach, breadcrumbs, and seasonings, then shaped into a ring mold and baked. Once set, the center of the ring was often filled with creamed mushrooms or other complementary fillings, creating an elegant presentation. This dish was a popular choice for luncheons and gatherings, showcasing a blend of flavors and textures. As dining trends shifted towards simpler and less labor-intensive dishes, the beef and spinach ring became a forgotten gem, reminiscent of a time when presentation was as important as taste. Pioneer trail mix meatballs. But to truly understand resourceful cooking, we have to go back further, to the days of the wagon trains and a dish that carried settlers across the frontier. Pioneer trail mix meatballs. Every ingredient had to earn its place in a pioneer's covered wagon. These weren't ordinary meatballs. Pioneer women mixed ground beef with dried fruits packed for the long journey, raisins, dried apples, even dried berries. The fruit wasn't just for flavor, it kept the meat moist during hours of slow cooking over open fires. Then came the final touch, rolling the meatballs in crushed dried corn, creating a protective outer layer that helped them stay fresh longer. Cooked in heavy cast iron Dutch ovens, these meatballs became trail survival food, nourishing families as they journeyed westward. The real trick? Saving the cooking liquid, letting it cool into a gelatin-rich broth that preserved leftover meatballs for the next day's trek. Beef and rice stuffed tomatoes. Capitalizing on the abundance of garden fresh produce, beef and rice stuffed tomatoes were a summertime favorite. Large, ripe tomatoes were hollowed out and filled with a savory mixture of ground beef, cooked rice, herbs, and sometimes cheese, or baked until the tomatoes were tender and the filling was flavorful. This dish offered a delightful combination of fresh and hearty elements. It was a creative way to utilize seasonal produce and provide a balanced meal. Over time, as year-round availability of produce led to less emphasis on seasonal cooking, this charming dish gradually faded from popularity, becoming a pleasant memory of summer dinners past. Ground beef stuffed eggplant. In Mediterranean kitchens, stuffed vegetables were a testament to resourcefulness and flavor. Ground beef mixed with aromatic spices, herbs, and sometimes rice was used to fill hollowed-out eggplants. Baked until tender, the eggplant absorbed the savory flavors of the filling, resulting in a harmonious blend of tastes and textures. Over time, as global cuisines evolved and preferences shifted, this labor-intensive dish became less common, leaving behind memories of family gatherings and shared meals. Crispy edge rice patties. Resourceful cooks knew how to stretch a little beef a long way, and one of the cleverest ways was with crispy edge rice patties. Instead of using pure ground beef, they mixed 1 part beef with 2 parts cooked rice, adding a splash of milk to keep things moist. Seasoning depended on what was available: grated carrots, onions, or even a pinch of dried herbs to make the meat stretch even further. The real trick? Pressing each patty thin and cooking it until the edges crisped up. Those crispy edges became the best part of the meal. Proof that, with the right technique, a simple dish could taste richer than pure beef alone. Beef and lentil stew. A staple in many households, beef and lentil stew combined ground beef with hearty lentils, vegetables, and spices, simmered together to create a nourishing and filling meal. This stew was both economical and nutritious, offering a balance of protein and fiber. Its simplicity and wholesomeness made it a favorite during times when stretching ingredients was essential. As modern cooking embraced more convenience-based approaches, this humble stew gradually faded from regular rotation, becoming a nostalgic reminder of frugal yet flavorful cooking. Church supper beef squares. Meanwhile, in church basements across America, another dish was bringing entire communities together: church supper beef squares. These weren't just casseroles, they were carefully engineered meals designed to feed half the congregation. The women who ran these kitchens knew exactly how to layer ground beef, cheese, and their secret sauce so that every square came out perfectly. They'd even mark the casserole with tiny toothpick flags, creating a precise grid to ensure every serving was exactly the same size. Nobody left hungry, and nobody got more than their fair share. But the real magic? Timing. They'd start baking just before the sermon ended, so that by the time the last hymn was sung, the scent of beef, cheese, and herbs wafted up into the sanctuary, making sure no one lingered too long after service. Factory workers' beef roll. As America's industrial workforce grew, so did the need for portable, hearty meals, and that's where the factory workers' beef roll changed the game. This wasn't some delicate sandwich, it was a sturdy, protein-packed roll built to fuel the men and women who kept America running. The dough, soft but strong, was enriched with eggs and milk, ensuring it wouldn't dry out even after hours in a lunch pail. Inside, seasoned ground beef was mixed with rice and chopped vegetables, then rolled up jelly roll style and baked low and slow until the outer crust formed a protective shield around the juicy filling. The best part? Hidden surprises inside. Some cooks snuck in a line of cheese or pickles running through the center, giving their hardworking loved ones something to look forward to during long shifts. These forgotten recipes aren't just about ground beef, they're about the spirit of American cooking, from church basements to factory floors where every meal told a story of creativity and survival. And with a few modern tweaks, they're perfect for today's families, offering a taste of history while creating new traditions at the dinner table. So which of these forgotten treasures will you bring back to life? If you've enjoyed this journey through America's kitchen history, don't forget to like and subscribe, and most importantly, share your own family recipes in the comments below.